Rob, good to see you. Congratulations on your big win.
John, thanks for having me back. Great to be on this side of the wall here.
I told Ryan McKenzie, your new colleague there in Pennsylvania, that you guys are like the gladiators. Like we've got this small little majority. Last cycle, New York, this side, Pennsylvania. It's got to feel cool going to orientation, being like, yeah, we got the majority because of us in Pennsylvania.
David doesn't have much on us, specifically PA 7 and 8 here. And, we left it all on the field. And,
Yeah.
we ran a great race. We stayed to the issues. And, with the message that, the Democrat Party threw at us just did not resonate.
So look, you come from a union background, right? I mean, you like a long family union background.
My grandfather was an IBW union lineman for 63 years.
Okay, so I'm looking throughout Pennsylvania. I got Scott Pressler on the show a bunch, Seth Kessel bringing down the counties. And from one county to another, all of them shifting to the right? Luzerne County. I mean, boom. And the question I have for you is, with your background, your family's background, was it working men and women, union blue collar types that said enough of this BS from the Dems? We're shifting over. Was that the take? What's the takeaway, I guess, from Pennsylvania as to why not just your victory, but throughout Pennsylvania, it went left to right?
Sure, and specifically the unions, and I can't speak on behalf of the membership and the rank and file, but they care about everything that the rest of us care about. They care about an economy that works. They care about what's happening at the southern border. They care about crime within inside of their communities. And now they have a Republican that is going to be a friend of labor, that understands labor. I sat as the chairman of the Joint Apprenticeship Training Committee for one of the IBWs. I was on the health, wellness, and annuity funds. I negotiated, oh my gosh, I think it was 5 or 6 different collective bargaining agreements and never found ourselves in CIR. And listen, I'm all about careers. I'm about skilled trade. I mean, these are jobs that will never be replaced by AI. We are always going to need electricians, carpenters, painters, plumbers, HVAC people. I mean, these are all careers that create family sustaining jobs. I mean, on day one, you earn while you learn, you have $0 in debt, and at the same time, you're going to have a job the day you turn over.
So what do we need to do? Uh, in terms of how, like, I know Linda McMahon is tapped for education. She's a big believer in choice. There's this stigma. I mean, people like Charlie Kirk are saying we don't need four-year colleges. We need to do things like you're talking about, to train people, to focus on apprenticeships, to adapt to the world that we live in, instead of saying everybody must go to an Ivy League school or a four-year institution and rack up a massive amount of debt. Some people are really skilled at working with their hands, as you mentioned. How do we tweak the world in terms of like the loans and everything else we give out to adapt to that?
Well, I think something that Congress did an okay job of in the past was expanding what 529s can be utilized for, but there's still a lot of work to be done with that. If you're an IBW electrician, an apprentice, you're coming in, you have to buy your own tools, you have to buy your own textbooks, you need to show up at the training centers. And not everything in the 529s could be utilized for those things. We just beat a 10-year incumbent, all Ivy League graduates, and we're looking around at our team, and we have Pitt grads. I went to the University of Scranton, and it's where the rubber meets the road. But we also have to work with the apprenticeship programs, the VOTEC schools, and work align hand in hand with ultimately what the job and what we're trying to fill. I mean, think about a diesel technician. I mean, the diesel technician of 20 years ago was a lot different than what it is now. Everything is computerized, and we need to be adapting the curriculum that fits with what job ready placement looks like. So we have to be working hand in hand with the end user, the end employer, and with the actual technical vocational schools to be able to marry those two things together. So, and that's just going to be, having the employers with, the manufacturers, whether it's John Deere, whether it's Caterpillar, I mean, an equipment manufacturer, and being able to align with what the growing needs of the industries are.
Um, how are the president has made very clear that he wants to slap tariffs on a bunch of things because he doesn't think that we're being treated fairly. How's that going to go over in Pennsylvania and with the kind of people that you're talking about specifically?
I understand what he's trying to do, and it's certainly something that we will evaluate case by case. There's certainly the threat of a tariff brings a lot of people to the bargaining table, but at the end of the day, life is already unaffordable for the average American, and we can't increase costs when we already have people deciding between heating their homes, putting food in their refrigerators, paying for vehicle maintenance. I mean, Pennsylvania is the average motorist spends over $1,000 a year just fixing their cars because of decrepit roadways and interstate systems. So we have to be targeted on the deployment of tariffs because we can't end the average American's ability to take care of themselves. But it's certainly something that I look forward to working with the rest of the conference on and the president because we have a responsibility to deliver for the American people.
Now, I know your family has a IBEW background, the electrical kind of stuff, but I mean, you've got, I mentioned this in a meeting earlier today. I just think the Republican Party of today is so different under Donald Trump. You had Sean O'Brien, the Teamsters, speaking at the convention. He met with Tom Emmer, the House Majority Whip there. Um, and he's talking about how the Democratic policies, Sean O'Brien, that is the head of the Teamsters, the policies of the Democrats have crippled the American workforce. And I mean, that must take a lot for them to recognize. And they clearly are setting like an olive branch and an arm out to say, okay, guys, we want to work with people like Rob who get it, who understand the need. So what is the sort of agenda that you would tell Tom Emmer and the leadership guys? These are the three things that we need to do to keep these guys on our side, to keep A, it's good policy, and B, it's good politics.
Well, actually, I was in that meeting. I was one of the member elects that was invited because of my background in skilled trade and how I've advocated for different skilled trade apprenticeship programs. But you know what? He realizes that the Democrat Party left them. It left the working base. It left the idea of just because you have a D or an R next to your name, we can all be for skilled trade and expanding those movements. Also, before I actually went back to the district over the weekend, and I met with the building trades of northeastern Pennsylvania. Now, these were traditionally people that all supported my opponent, even as far as doing press conferences a few weeks out with my opponent. And I said from day one, I never expect anyone to lose a friend to make a friend. But was very adamant that on day one, you will have a friend. As long as there's a way that we can, as an employer and as a contractor, we can remain competitive. I'm all for creating the best and brightest skilled tradesmen and women, regardless of what their craft is going to be. Obviously, Davis Bacon is a big push. But
Do
after
you
meeting with
support Davis Bacon?
I have my entire life for sure.
Okay.
Again, responsibly. And
Which,
at the end
just
of the
so
day,
viewers know, that's the prevailing wage, union wage on federal projects. So, okay.
which is a little bit different than your run of the mill Republican. But at the end of the day, where my district is, we come from the days of anthracite coal mining. The down in downtown Scranton, we actually have monuments of different labor movements. But at the end of the day, it needs to be done responsibly. And we can't bankrupt the American taxpayer to fund these projects. So there's certainly a place when you're talking about a skilled trade. I mean, you're going through a 5-year apprenticeship program, and your ability to perform the work quicker, faster, more efficiently, there's a lot of additional benefits. My company would not have been able to grow 400% over a period of 10 years if we did not have the relationships, whether it was operating engineers, IBWs, laborers, and that was helped our ability to ramp up and ramp down with people that were ready to hit the ground running. I mean, listen, we're in the traffic signal business and power distribution after natural disasters and recovering areas that have been totally decimated. We need people that are job ready on day one to provide services to the industry that is affected. And that's why I was so inclined to be involved on the Joint Apprenticeship Training Committee. So these next generation electricians or carpenters, whatever that case may be, is ready to do the job. That we don't have the time to afford a ramp up or a ramp down in an educational process.
You said the phrase bankrupt the American people. You won a very close race most members of Congress love to come home, and I get it, which is here's what I got done for you. Here's the bridge. Here's the VA center, whatever. I believe that our debt has become an existential threat to our very existence. We are piling up debt. It's a massive competitive disadvantage with China, but it's also going to start overcoming our ability to do the basics of what we do as a government. At some point, the interest payments start becoming so big that we can't do the essentials, like protect our own country. I get it's not sexy. I get that this is not how politics normally works, but how concerned are you about the debt, and how willing are you to work with like an Elon Musk and a Vivek Ramaswamy in this effort that President Trump has sanctioned to look at government and to say, we got to get rid of waste and inefficiency?
We actually had a budget meeting this morning, and looking
Who's
at
we?
it, the freshman members of Congress coming
Okay.
in. And I was lucky enough to participate in there. And it is a very scary situation when we are spending more on interest than we are on our military budget. It's certainly alarming. It is not going down. And, we are financing our children and great grandchildren's futures off of, when you're spending almost $1 trillion a year in just debt service. It's very alarming. So there's going to be some challenging votes, and I obviously would welcome the opportunity to work with Elon Musk and seeing what he did with Twitter on day one. I remember the Twitter image of him carrying the sink out, but I mean, we have to make some really strong decision for what's best for the future of this country. I mean, it's peace through strength, and financial strength is something that needs to remain paramount. Something that I ran into when I came into my family business as chief financial officer is we had debt. I mean, not quite as bad as the federal government, but we were millions and millions of dollars in the hole. And I remember looking and spending $385,000 a year just in debt service. And I remember looking at our book value of equipment and how quickly everything was depreciating, and how our balance sheet was weak. And that's the first thing that we needed to do was put the finger in the dam and stop the water from flowing and start to rebuild our working capital. And ultimately, that's what allowed us to grow over the next 10 years. We had the banking and the surety relationships to take on bigger, better projects. But it all came back down to the financial strength and solvency of the organization. And I look at the federal government in a very similar capacity.
And do you think when you were in this meeting with these freshmen and they're throwing this at you, was there sort of a shared sense of, all right, guys, we got to do something, or all right, we'll pass it on to the next Congress? I mean, what was the takeaway from the collective group?
I'll tell you, my takeaway was that there's no room to punt here. And you're
Yeah,
looking
but
at this.
Rob, you got a business background. I get it. You're smart. Like, you get this. You
Thank
just
you.
walk through your business. You get this better than most of the clowns that are in Washington. And so I have no doubt you get it, but I'm more concerned about the people that don't have Rob's experience running a business and going, okay, how do we service the debt? How do we make costs? How do we do this? What I'm really trying to get at is, did you look around the room and go, hey, guys, you're not getting the big picture here? Or was there collective gasping?
There was a lot of questions that would indicate that there is concern. And we have a very strong freshman class coming in here with a lot of people from different backgrounds, of whether it was federal prosecutors all the way down to business owners. And yes, I would say the consensus is that we have a dire problem. And I think that's a big reason why a lot of us decided to get into this. But also, it is just so hard to conceptualize how much debt $35 trillion looks like. I mean, you take $1 million, you stack it up on the back of a chair, $100 bills, it's 3 feet high. $1 trillion is 2.5 times higher than where the International Space Station flies. So trying to comprehend the deficit that we are running into, we need to be able to put this into a metric like, how do we work away at it? And, you have discretionary spending, and we still have to maintain our programs, our Social Security, our Medicare, because our senior citizens aren't in a position to have reduced funding on those things. We need to preserve that also for the next generation. But we also, just just cannot continue to have omnibus massive spending bills without the accountability that the American people deserve. And again, it's a big reason why I decided to throw my hat into the ring and ultimately now become a member of Congress. Is fiscal responsibility has always been the paramount of who I am. And I've seen our company, and through being hands-on, you have to be able to take care of your own before you take care of everybody else.
So we have this super thin majority. Like I said, I mean, you and Ryan and everyone can take credit for, hey, look, Pennsylvania got through there. Are you willing to leverage that to say, hey, guys, we need to be, for the good of our future, for the good of our children, our grandchildren, we need to stop spending. I'm willing to fight for some of this because I think, Rob, the problem is too often I've heard this over the last 10 years. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. And then we vote yes on an omnibus and we go, you know what? The next time we're definitely going to do something. And then we wait till the next October. The deadline comes up. We go, we got to do it because the government will shut down. But next time. And we just keep doing that year after year after year until somebody's willing to say, guys, we need to stop the business as usual. Like, I think that's what's needed right now. Donald Trump's willing to fight. Or like, do we have a willingness among you and your freshmen to say, I'm willing to fight for the future of this country and stop some of the silly spending?
I can speak for myself, and absolutely. And I'll tell you, every single conference organization meeting that we've had, one of the top conversations was this debt. And it is, if you are not financially able to pay your bills, whether that's inside of your own personal residence or as a federal government, you are setting yourself up for a disaster. But there needs to be a line in the sand. But there's other ways that we can offset deficit is to make a pro-growth, pro-business environment by getting rid of the burdensome regulations. And you're looking at the growth of over, 2%. I think that's a very conservative number. And where we've been staggered here for the last, 4 years, there's opportunities to increase our growth. And we can get to those 3 and 4 percentile margins with the right leadership starting inside of the White House. And I'm very optimistic that that will be the case. And that will be, and I've said even on the campaign trail that, I don't know if we have a revenue issue. We can always be better and more profitable as a society, but we have a spending issue.
Yes.
And that's something that we need to look at go through with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah. I mean, we have that's the problem. A revenue problem. You look around government, it's blatant, it's obvious. I mean, there's so many easy things that we could be doing if the focus was there. And unfortunately, that's why I'm saying I think a lot of good people go, well, unfortunately, we got to wait one more year, and the deficit and the debt continue to balloon.
Listen, there's going to be a year that there's not another year.
Right. No, that's the point, though, is that it takes somebody to say, guys, we can't keep doing this. And that's the problem, is that everyone goes, well, next year we'll do it.
Listen, eventually these roosters are going to come home to nest.
Yes.
And you need to be able to stand up and say, hey, listen, like, I'm not going to finance this. We're already into my great grandchildren,
right,
being saddled with debt. I don't think we need to go now 7 generations down the line that are ultimately going to be paying for frivolous spending. And obviously looking at the reserve currency and making sure that, our monetary policy remains strong. We want to remain the reserve currency for the world. And obviously the value of the dollar and the power of the American government is what ultimately guarantees these things. But there needs to be a real hard look at how these programs are going to be funded. And there's not a big percentage margin under the discretionary side that you have to be able to whittle through. But again, always looking at growth environments. I'm not sure hiring 87,000 new IRS agents is the right idea to squeeze 50 cents out of every single American is the right idea. And in fact, we should be, doing anything that would inhibit growth, getting rid of those things and fostering those environments that would create better incentives.
100%. Rob, congratulations on your big victory. I'm excited for you to join the ranks of Congress and fight like heck to get us back on track. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
You bet.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.